The cost of renewable energy, and in fact all technologies, are coming down fairly fast, have come down quite significantly. PV and wind are the sort of leaders in that. So we have now got renewable energy down to a level where the resources are, where the sun resources, not in Greenland but in the Middle East, and where we have got a reasonable amount of land available at modest costs. For a segment of electricity that's consumed in those countries, and a fairly significant segment of that, typically 20-odd%, renewables is the most cost competitive way already of delivering that energy. Even in countries where gas and oil is available at a very low cost. And Dubai is, this particular project that has attracted a lot of attention, is the real case in point. So we can talk, but what is actually happening on the ground? So when Dubai hesitantly went out and procured this project, they actually thought, okay, let's wait and see what the tariff was going to come at. Well, when they received that tariff of 5.845, they were completely stunned, and then they quickly did the calculation and they said, well, you know what, we can't deliver 100 megawatts at that tariff using any other fuel that we conventionally have. So let's double the procurement to 200 megawatts immediately. And so in fact they contracted 100 megawatt, they tendered 100 megawatt, ended up buying 200 and said, let's accelerate deployment now. They had a 1,000 megawatt plan, immediately changed that to a 3,000 megawatt plan, and they are now coming out, before the end of this year, they intend to complete procurement of the next phase of a big one project, 800 megawatts PV. So, and this has within the last sort of 10 days or 2 weeks ago, a bundle of projects started to be, has come through procurement in Jordan, showing 6-7 cents tariffs. So it is true that pricing is coming down, and this is immediately changing the mindset, and everybody is out there redoing their calculation and looking at new targets. So I'm extremely optimistic. I think in 2020 we're going to look back and say, if we're going to pick one sort of year as a point of inflection, I'm very confident it'll be 2015.
We heard the Saudi oil minister last week saying that he feels that Saudi Arabia could be a solar exporter within I think he said within a decade. I mean, is that realistic?
Look, I think the first part of it, Saudi could be and will be a solar exporter. I think it's absolutely realistic and it's going to happen. Within a decade, I have a suspicion that within the decade we will produce a significant amount of electricity using renewable energy and particularly solar, but we will consume it. Because the reality is we've got a young population that's growing, that's coming into employment, economic activity is increasing at a pace. Power demand is growing. Even though we are pushing a lot of effort into efficiency, demand is still growing at about 10 to 11%. So in a grid of 50,000 megawatts, we need to keep adding about 5,000 megawatts all the time. So there's a lot of space for us to consume renewable energy immediately ourselves. So the reality is, I think for the next decade to maybe even more, we will start broadening the fuel mix beyond oil and gas, taking more and more renewables. But there will come a time when we will have a certain amount of capacity for exports. In fact, the minute we start looking at a broader spectrum across countries, we can start to take advantage of time zone differences, peak energy differences in different grids, and start to balance out by selling and buying across countries as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, and I think the mindset is different now. We're becoming much more cost conscious, resource conscious. Yeah. That's the good news.
The climate investment funds are clearly playing an important role, sort of leveraging finance around the world. Where do you see as the big markets in the next 10 years? Where do you think big major development funds and yourself are looking at?
Look, climate investment funds are desperately needed to continue to do this fantastic job in two areas, in my mind. One area is in order to get into technologies that need to be grown fast. So whether it is CSP, whether it is geothermal, the cost of these are still relatively high compared to, say, something like PV. PV has been deployed 300,000, 400,000 megawatts around the world. So there's a lot of actors there. There's a lot of innovation that has gone in, brought the cost down. So CSP, geothermal, all these things are in its early days. So CIF needs to come in and allow that to be deployed fast, bring the cost down a little bit so that it can be affordable by the consumers, so that innovation will go in and more actors will start to come in and bring the cost down, and then they can pull back. The other area that CIF is desperately needed is to encourage investments into what are perceived as more riskier countries. So whether it is in Africa, whether it is parts of Latin America, parts of Asia, and even parts of the Middle East, because everybody thinks the whole of the Middle East is very rich. Well, in fact, it's not. Egypt, for example, is a wonderful example of where somebody like CIF needs to be helping right now, because to reduce the perception of that risk. So get a meaningful amount of megawatts installed using the CIF and IFI supports and the leverage of CIF, then the private sector will step in much more readily and start bringing the cost down themselves. Because right now, otherwise, either the private sector will not go there or will be seeking a massive premium to go there because of this perceived risk.
Final question, what kind of message as a businessman are you looking to get out of the Paris summit at the end of this year? What kind of message would you like negotiators to deliver to energy businesses around the world in terms of the kind of investment trajectories they should be pursuing?
I think what the private sector is looking for from the policymakers is a very clear commitment to accepting renewables and renewable energy into the energy mix, and what we would like to see is whether they pick 5% or whether they pick 50%, it doesn't really matter, but they actually come out and pick a percentage so that as a target and give some convincing commitment to that target.
So there should be a target for renewables.
Absolutely. I think every country, because that is what is going to allow the private sector, give private sector the confidence of a market in order to then invest in innovation, continue to invest in bringing the cost down and make it much, much more affordable. I think the question of, is carbon a problem? Is it contributing? I think this is all a waste of time now. I think the reality, nature is showing us that, and I think it's just generally accepted everywhere. So I think we need to get away from that, and we need to much more focus on, it is cost competitive already. It is moving towards that way. So can we make it get there faster? What we don't want to see is technology and private sector driving way ahead of policymaker. We already are. Usually what happens is, what the kind of nice way to do this is nice policies, stable policies, policymakers go forward, and we kind of race behind in order to then capitalize on it and capture it. And that keeps moving. Well, what has happened here is actually over time, well, I don't want to say, I have to say it. Policy has become irrelevant almost, okay? Innovation, private sector has sort of gone way past policy. But unfortunately, the wider that gap becomes, the more energy and tension will go towards managing that gap and getting diverted. So it's very important now that policymakers come forward with appropriate policies, clear guidelines, in order to then allow the private sector to do what it's good at. That is, it is good at being efficient, good at innovation, good at marshalling money, good at delivering services.